You might think that the reason that you're not successful with women is because you're not saying or doing the right thing, or because you're not successful enough, or because you're not handsome or tall enough. But what if I told you that the real reason that you might be struggling is buried beneath years of shame, old unresolved wounds, and a fear of truly being seen? If you're feeling curious to find out if that is you, even just a little bit, then stick around and find out more about what exactly you can start to do to shift away from that inner dynamic and free yourself of the burden of those wounds and patterns once and for all. Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm a love and confidence coach, and I coach high-achieving men to develop the emotional intelligence, the confidence, the communication skills that will enable them to have more success in their love life, their social life, and in their relationship to themselves. Not just to attract the right woman, but to build something real. And none of that is possible without also doing the inner work. So let's be real. The world taught you to be a man by numbing, not feeling, to be strong, to stay logical, and to hide anything that could be perceived as weakness at all costs. But that armor is the very thing that's now keeping you from real, meaningful connection. When you don't understand your triggers, when you avoid vulnerability, when your worth is tied to how well you're performing or how successful you appear to be, you show up as guarded, needy, or avoidant. And women can feel that. And yeah, you might be able to spark attraction and get some attention, but that's not going to last without depth. It's so important to invest time and energy into doing the work. So, what does doing the work look like exactly, you might be asking? It requires for you to look at the parts of yourself that you've been running away and hiding from. The fear of rejection that causes you to people please, or perform, or avoid connection altogether. The shame that tells you that you're not good enough unless you're achieving something or you fit some kind of idealistic idea of what you should be in order to attract women. The attachment wounds from your early developmental childhood that either cause you to cling to connection or to push love away altogether. It means looking into your subconscious patterns and the shadow, as we call it in psychology, facing the aspects of yourself that you have disowned. It means allowing yourself to go to the root and understand your reactions, not just managing the symptoms. And this isn't about becoming less of a man. It's about becoming more of yourself with nothing to hide. Doing the work changes everything in your life. Your relationship with yourself, but also your relationship with women. It impacts the way that you're able to love and to allow yourself to be loved. When you've done the work, you don't freeze up when you see a beautiful woman because you're afraid of rejection or not being good enough or assuming that she won't find you attractive or interesting enough. And that's because you're not chasing validation. You're validating yourself. You won't panic when a woman pulls away because you know that your worth isn't dependent on her. And so you can create opportunities to reconnect with open communication and vulnerability and integrity. And you won't sabotage a perfectly good connection because you have trust and you want to allow yourself to feel safe in intimacy. And when you do finally get into a long-term relationship where you and a woman have committed to each other, doing the work enables you to show up in communication, to be vulnerable, to be real, and to hold space for that connection to grow and flourish as time goes on. Because one of the most important benchmarks of a relationship is communication. It's also growth and teamwork. And when you're lacking those things and you're not able to bring that mutually to the forefront of your relationship, that's when you start to grow apart over time. That's when resentments start to build, when reactivity starts to damage the relationship, where triggers and the way that you respond to things that don't go exactly the way that you would have liked start to sabotage the connection. When your insecurities are not able to be openly spoken about and named so that you can move through that and heal that together. And when you've done the work, you're able to show up in a different way, where you actually do have that open communication, vulnerability, and that authenticity to allow yourself and her to be seen mutually in a long-term relationship. And that's because you've taken the time before getting into that relationship to do the work on building your relationship with yourself first. There are so many wounds that we all carry around in this life. There's not a single person in this world who hasn't experienced some kind of attachment wounding or difficulties that have made us question our sense of self-worth, a feeling of being too much or not enough, a feeling of anticipating abandonment, anticipating rejection all the time. And the funny thing is, many of these wounds began in the very first few years of your life, and often they're coming from a place that's very much nonverbal, and they create patterns that you continuously subconsciously will reiterate and recreate in your life again and again in an attempt to try and close the loop that was opened in your childhood, to try and make sense of why that not enough feeling is still so present. And when you start to do this work, you start to heal your relationship with yourself. You start to heal your relationship with the inner child that's inside of you, who still feels the absence of that parent, who still feels the emotional neglect of a father or a mother or both. That child who feels that they have to learn to look after all of their needs on their own because nobody else is going to be there for them, or that they need to try chasing for someone else to save them because they don't feel able to hold their own needs on their own either. Doing the work enables you to learn how to co-regulate and self-regulate mutually and build a connection that allows both of those principles to come together, and enabling yourself to go into these deeper parts of yourself that you may be avoiding or numbing or running away from because you don't have the tools or the understanding of how to do that, how to look into them. But also because there's a fear that you don't really know how to handle what's happening deep inside of you. You don't know how to communicate about it. You don't know how to express it in a healthy way because no one ever taught you, right? When you do start to do that work and actually start investing into developing those communication skills with yourself, developing the ability to look into yourself, that's when you start to heal. And that enables you to be more ready to get into a deep and meaningful relationship with someone. These patterns, these triggers, the attachment styles, the avoidancy, the neediness, whatever it might be, it's going to come up in your relationships at some point. It's inevitable. All of the wounds that we carry were born in relationship. And the only way that we can heal those wounds is in relationship, where we get to show ourselves that there are different outcomes to familiar scenarios, where you get to bless yourself with the opportunity to adopt a new pattern, to be able to speak out what you need for the first time with integrity and authenticity, or to be able to hold space for another person who's going through a challenging emotional moment of trigger, and actually be able to understand and empathize with them from a place of vulnerability and emotional safety. Being in relationship with others allows you the space to actually unlock the deepest capabilities of who you can be and to experience what it really feels like to be loved for the first time. Because you know, these parts of yourself that you hide, these parts of yourself that you don't address, the uncomfortable emotions, the intensity within, the traumas and the triggers and the insecurities and the feeling of not being enough, the void that you're trying to fill with external validation or achievement, those things need to be soothed by actually being seen. These are the parts of yourself that you might feel deep down make you unworthy of love. These are the parts of yourself that you might feel like you need to hide in order to get somebody to actually love you and stay in your life. But the truth is, those parts of yourself are the very parts that need to be seen and loved so they can be nurtured and those wounds can be licked and soothed in the witnessing that even in the face of being an imperfect, insecure person who has triggers and pains and wounds, somebody can still see you in your entirety and love you anyway. And that is a very powerful healing thing. And the only way that you can get yourself to that place that you enable that kind of connection is to first start doing that work with yourself. It's not about being completely healed or cured of all of your traumas and your pains and your insecurities, but it's about building the awareness and the communication and the self-regulation that you can actually empathize with yourself and feel what's happening inside of you and give others the space to actually witness you in that without shame, but instead of realizing that you are a human who has the full breadth of experience under your belt. You are allowed to experience the full breadth of emotions and to be witnessed in the various states that you inevitably go through as a human being. See, a lot of these patterns that you've built in your life, the patterns of avoidancy, the patterns of being not very trusting, of avoiding communication about your needs, these patterns are something that were born as a maladaptive strategy to protect you from the pain that you didn't know how to handle. These patterns are something that did keep you safe at some point and they served a purpose at the time. But now they are the very thing that holds you back from being able to truly connect because they stop you from allowing yourself to be really deeply seen. And being able to be seen in relationship is an extremely healing process, but that requires taking off the armor and being willing to challenge those patterns and find a new way, a new pattern, a new approach to connecting and communicating and responding to the inner workings of your subconscious, of your emotions, of your mind. And let me just say this really clearly. Vulnerability does not make you weak. Vulnerability makes you real and courageous. Just think about it for a second. The act of hiding and running away in itself is an act of fear. It's an act of being, in some sense, cowardly, right? So if you're hiding the truest, deepest parts of yourself that come up in conflict or relationship or insecurities or things that you're going through that you're struggling with, then you're actually acting not from a place of courage. Even if you might seem strong and courageous on the outside, the deeper parts of you feel actually quite afraid of showing and seeing what's really happening within. Real courage means facing the things that you're afraid of, showing up in the face of fear and allowing yourself to move through that fear and find the gold that lies on the other side. And if you're always hiding from your inner experience, you're hiding from your past, you're hiding from your insecurities with yourself and with others, and you don't allow yourself to be real with that, then you're not allowing yourself the gift of courage that comes with facing those fears, with facing yourself truly, and allowing others to witness you truly. There is nothing more attractive to a feminine woman than a man who can be deeply present and emotionally grounded in his state. A man who can speak in his truth and is able to be real about what's happening inside of himself without blame or control or belittling or attacking or arguing, but instead being able to allow himself to be witnessed in his authentic truth. And when you stop hiding, that's when she can finally feel you. When you lead with your full self, courage, strength, and sensitivity, that's when she feels safe to open up to you as well. And that allows her to have the space to nurture you and hold space for you in a beautiful feminine way that feels very healing. That's a really big part of masculine leadership. And again, that's only going to come by truly doing the work. There is so much more that I could talk about on this topic, and the process of doing the work is a long-term continuous investment in yourself. And it's a real act of self-love to do that work and to learn to express yourself in a more authentic, self-accepted way. If you want to learn more about what that work might look like, then do be sure to check out the link that's in the description below. That link's going to take you to an opportunity for a one-on-one roadmap session with me. And in this session, we're going to take some time to diagnose where you're at right now and start to see and identify some of those blocks that you might be struggling to see yourself, and to get clear on what your goals are. What is it that you truly want and need in your life that will help you to step into the most high value, confident and magnetic version of yourself that will attract the woman of your dreams, but also be able to keep her in a long-lasting relationship. You've already shown yourself that you have the drive and the dedication to do the hard work and succeed in life in so many ways. And now it's time to show yourself that you can do the work to succeed in love and your relationship with yourself as well. If this video resonated, then do be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content from me, then do be sure to subscribe to the channel and join this thriving community of men just like yourself who are willing and excited to grow and shift in this area of their life. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.